The Defender moved through deep space like a shadow, its swarm crawling constantly over the hull, sealing scars from the last battle. The starfield ahead shimmered with cold, distant light, but Vorex's eyes were fixed on the map the AI had, revealed dozens of red marks scattered across the galaxy, each representing a hidden human cache. The nearest one lay on the edge of an abandoned system. No planets, no stations, no active beacons, just a dying sun and a single frozen moon orbiting in silence. Crick studied the scans with a frown. I'm not picking up any energy signatures. If there's a cache here, it's been dead for centuries. AI replied, its tone sharp. Human technology rarely advertises itself. Approach coordinates 27/6. As they neared the frozen moon, something strange appeared on the display. A massive crater. Perfectly circular, its surface unnaturally smooth. At the center, buried beneath layers of ice, a faint geometric shape gleamed. That's no rock. Vorex muttered. The Defender descended toward the moon's surface. Swarm units, detached from the hull, drilling into the ice with precision. Steam rose in great clouds as the frozen crust gave way, revealing an entrance, or a black triangular gateway carved directly into the moon itself. Open it, Vorex ordered. The swarm flowed over the surface of the gate, searching for a way in. For a moment nothing happened, then the entire structure shuddered, and the gate split down the middle, opening with a deep, resonating boom. Beyond lay a dark tunnel, wide enough for the Defender to enter. The ship slid forward, its lights piercing the black. Inside, the walls were lined with metallic ribs, each etched with human writing and symbols. As they reached the end of the tunnel, the space widened into a vast chamber, and there it was, a ship. Smaller than the Defender, but unmistakably human in design. Sleek, predatory, its surface polished like a blade. Around it floated dozens of smaller craft, drones, weapons, platforms, and sealed cargo containers marked with old human insignia. Crick's voice was barely a whisper. It's a whole armory. The AI's tone was unreadable. This is the Vigilance, a strike frigate, last of the Alpha class. Crew capacity, 40. Weapon systems, classified. It has been waiting 200 years for activation. Stepped forward on the command deck, staring at the sleek ship on the view screen. Can we power it up? The AI hesitated for the first time. We can. But I caution you, Commander. The Vigilance was designed for one purpose only. Planetary. Elimination. Crick's eyes widened. You mean, yes, the AI cut in? It can wipe entire worlds in ours. Vorex considered the words, the weight of the weapon before them. His people, the ones who had tried to destroy the ship, would never stop hunting them. And now, they had a weapon that could turn the war from survival to domination. Bring it online, Vorex said finally. The swarm surged forward, flowing into the Vigilance's hull. Lights flickered on across its surface, then steadied into a deadly white glow. Systems hummed to life, and a deep, thrumming vibration filled the air. The AI's voice returned, deeper now, almost layered. The Vigilance is awake, its command. Protocols will bind only to you, Commander. Your crew will need to learn to operate human warcraft, the way humans did. Before Vorex could answer, alarms sounded across the Defender. Cricks checked the sensors. Multiple warp signatures, closing fast. On the tactical display, 5 ships appeared. None from Vorex's people. These were strangers, their designs. Jagged and spiked, painted with the colors of a pirate fleet. The AI's tone sharpened. They've been tracking the Defender. They want the cache. They will not leave alive. Vorex's gaze shifted to the Vigilance. Then it's time to see what this ship can do. The pirate fleet dropped out of warp in a storm of jagged holes and burning engines, their ships spreading into an attack pattern like wolves circling prey. On the Defender's command deck, red battle lights flashed, and the hum of the swarm deepened into a low growl. Vorex stood at the center, his eyes fixed on the display. The Vigilance floated beside them, its sleek black hull gleaming under the chamber's dim light, every line of it promising violence. Swarm tendrils still connected the two ships, feeding the smaller vessel with power and data. Enemy vessels. Charging weapons, Crix reported, his voice tight. They're not here to talk. The AI's voice was cold, precise. Standard pirate tactics. Overwhelm defenses. Board target, strip resources. They do not realize the nature of their prey. Vorex allowed himself the smallest grin. Then let's educate them. The defender surged forward, its cannons roaring to life. Beams of searing light punched through the nearest pirate ship, ripping it apart before it could even fire. The Vigilance followed like a hunting blade, weaving between enemy ships with impossible agility. Activating primary weapon system, the AI announced. Target acquisition locked. On the Vigilance's hull, panels slid open, revealing a long, slender barrel that began to glow with blinding white energy. In one smooth motion, it fired a beam so intense it left a burning trail through. The Void, the pirate flagship, didn't explode. It simply vanished, reduced to vapor in an instant. The Cums exploded with panicked voices from the remaining ships. Crix stared at the readouts. One shot, and it erased them. Planetary elimination power, the AI said. On a smaller scale. The swarm swirled outward, forming vast, spiked nets that wrapped around two fleeing pirate frigates, dragging them back toward the Vigilance. Vorex gave the order, and the smaller ship's secondary guns tore them apart. Only one pirate vessel remained. It tried to run, engines burning at maximum, but the defender was already on it. The ancient warship matched its speed, slid alongside, and unleashed a broadside that split the ship in two. Silence returned to the system. Debris drifted like snow in the darkness. Crix broke the quiet. If the pirates were tracking us, others will too. This cache won't stay secret for long, Good Vorex said, his voice calm but sharp. Let them come. The AI's tone carried something almost like satisfaction. The Vigilance is now fully integrated into fleet systems. More caches await. With each, our power will grow. Humanity's shadow will spread once more. Crix looked uneasy. And when the galaxy realizes the humans are back, Vorex stepped toward the forward viewport, staring into the endless dark. They'll fear us the same way they did before. And this time, they'll have reason. The AI's voice lowered, almost like a whisper carried through steel. Commander, you are no longer Carvath. You are human in all but blood, and humanity never stops. The Defender and the Vigilance turned together, engines burning bright as they left the frozen moon behind. Somewhere in the darkness, more caches waited. More weapons. More battles, and across the galaxy, whispers were already spreading through military channels, pirate dens, and shadow markets of a ghost ship, an unstoppable swarm, and the return of a species that had once defied the universe itself. The humans were gone. Now they were coming back. Hostility confirmed, the machine said. Containment protocol active. The drones closed in. Tay stepped forward, holding his hands up. Wait, we can help you. Whatever you're looking for, the chamber's central console flared. With sudden light, new voice spoke, deeper, older, with a strange edge of human tone. Stand down, Sentinel. They are not the enemy. The black armored machine froze in place, then slowly turned toward the console. Command override? Impossible. All human officers are deceased. From somewhere far below the chamber, there was a hiss of venting air. The floor trembled slightly. Platform began to rise, bringing with it a single sealed cryopod. Frost covered the glass, hiding the figure inside. The new voice came again, quieter. I am not dead. The cryopod settled into place, and for the first time, the boarding crew could see what lay within. A human, pale, scarred, his uniform torn, but still bearing the same strange insignia as the ship's hull. His eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell slowly. The Sentinel, the black machine, took a step forward, almost cautiously. Captain Elias Ward. Authorization code required. The man inside the pod stirred.
Yes.
His eyes opened sharp. alive and carrying the kind of weight only survivors carry. His voice was weak but steady. Override. Code: Archangel 01. Every light in the chamber flared bright white. The drones halted, their red eyes dimming to black. The sentinel stepped back, lowering its weapon. Relin stared at the human in disbelief. "You're alive, after all this time." Elias Ward's gaze swept over them, cold and calculating. "You've made a mistake coming here. The ship isn't abandoned, and you've just woken it up." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The human's voice hardened. "If you're smart, you'll leave. Now, because the thing that killed my crew will know we're awake, and it will be coming." A distant rumble echoed through the ship, low and heavy. As though answering his words, the rumble rolled through the ship again, stronger this time. Dust drifted down from the high ceiling of the chamber. Somewhere deep in the Vanguard's hull, metal groaned like an old predator waking from sleep. Elias Ward's eyes narrowed as he listened, his expression grim. "They found us," he said quietly. Relin stepped closer to the cryopod. Who's coming?" As the human's gaze locked on him, sharp as a blade. "The Devourers. If you've never heard of them, that's because you're still alive. And if you want to stay that way, you'll follow my orders exactly." Before Relin could speak, the sentinel, the black-armored guardian, turned its head toward the far wall. Unidentified mass signatures detected. Multiple vectors. Range 8 million kilometers. Closing at superluminal speed. The alien crew exchanged uneasy glances. Superluminal speed meant they were traveling faster than light, catching up quickly. Elias exhaled slowly, as if bracing himself.
"A sentinel."
"Release me." The pod hissed open, releasing a swirl of frost into the air. Leah stepped out, his uniform stiff with cold, his movements slow but controlled. Every step he took carried the weight of someone who had seen too much and survived it. Tarek stared at him with a mix of awe and fear. You've been asleep for 300 years? Elias didn't answer. He moved to the console in the center of the room, his fingers dancing across the controls with practiced precision. The lights above dimmed, replaced by a massive projection of space. Countless red markers swarmed across the display, each one a devourer vessel. Relin swallowed hard. There are hundreds of them. Elias glanced over his shoulder. Hundreds? That's just their vanguard. If we don't destroy them now, the rest will follow. When they do, they'll wipe out every living thing they find.
Ow!
The Sentinels. Voice cut in. Primary weapon systems are offline. Main reactor is at 27% capacity. Planetfall cannon requires full output. That means we need fuel, Elias said, and fast. Berlin's crew shifted uneasily. We're salvagers, not soldiers. They didn't sign up for a war. But the way Elias spoke, there was no choice. Either help him fight or die when the Devourers arrived. Elias studied the aliens for a long moment, then said, I don't trust you, but I trust the enemy even less. Sentinel Lock Armory access. They'll need human weapons. The floor panels near the wall slid open, revealing racks of strange, sleek rifles and compact devices. The weapons looked older than anything the crew had seen, but also far more advanced. Tay hesitated before picking one up. I don't know how to use this. Elias was already strapping a heavy pistol to his side. Pull the trigger. Rest you'll learn fast enough. Before they could arm themselves fully, the ship shook again, this time from a direct hit. Somewhere outside, something massive had slammed into the Vanguard's hull. The lights flickered. Impact on lower decks, Sentinel reported. Boarding pods detected. Relin's eyes widened. They're already here. Elias drew his pistol and started toward the corridor. You wanted treasure? You found it. Now let's see if you can live long enough to spend it. The boarding team followed, the Sentinel's heavy steps echoing behind them. The corridors were different now, lights running along the walls, automated defenses shifting into place. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling, scanning for targets. The first Devourer came into view without warning. It was not a creature in the usual sense. It was a twisted blend of flesh and metal. Long limbs ending in bladed claws, a face hidden behind. a mask of shifting black armor. Its movements were unnaturally fast, jerking and lunging like something hungry. When it screamed, the sound was not just in the ears, it was inside the mind. Sharp and cold. Terra froze, his rifle trembling. Elias didn't hesitate. He fired once, and the Devourer's head snapped back in a burst of silver light, collapsing it into a heap of steaming metal and bone. They hunt in packs, Elias warned. Stay close to the walls. Never give them your back. The warning came too late for one crew member. From the shadows above, another Devourer dropped down, claws slicing through armor and flesh in a single motion. The alien's scream echoed in the narrow corridor before going silent. The crew fought their way forward, the ship's turrets joining in, cutting down anything that moved. But for every Devourer they killed, more poured in. Relin shouted over, "The noise, we can't hold them." Elias glanced back with cold certainty. "We're not supposed to. Just need to buy enough time for the cannon to charge." The Sentinel's voice came through the coms. Planetfall cannon at 42%. Estimated time to full charge, 16 minutes. 16 minutes felt like an eternity. Another explosion rocked the deck, nearly throwing them off their feet. Sentinel reported more boarding pods latching onto the ship's hull. The corridors ahead twisted with flashes of light and bursts of gunfire. Elias stopped at a blast door and slammed his hand on the control panel. "Get inside." They stumbled into a smaller chamber filled with humming machinery. The door sealed behind them, cutting off the screams of the Devourers outside. Elias moved to a control console, tapping rapidly. Relin, still catching his breath, asked, "What is this place?" "The auxiliary reactor room," Elias said. "If I can overcharge it, we might get the cannon ready in half the time. But it'll burn out this section of the ship." Tarek's voice shook. "If you can't," Elias met his eyes, his tone hard, "then we all die, and the galaxy follows." Outside, the ship groaned again, as if the Devourers were tearing at its bones. The auxiliary reactor chamber hummed louder as Elias worked the console, his fingers flying over controls that no one else in the room could even begin to understand. Warning lights flashed overhead, painting the walls in pulsing red. Relin stood near the sealed door, rifle ready, eyes darting toward the corridor outside as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. "Sentinel," Elias called without looking up. "Reroute secondary conduits to the cannon feed." "Don't care if it overloads the coils?" The Sentinel's voice came back, calm but edged with urgency. "Compliance will risk catastrophic failure in multiple ship systems." "Do it," Elias said flatly. Relin took a step toward him. "What happens if the reactor fails?" Elias's hands never stopped moving. "Then we won't have to worry about the Devourers. We'll be dead before they get here." A heavy thud echoed from somewhere just beyond the chamber walls. Then, another, closer this time. The sound was deliberate, like something big was moving through the ship, hunting. What? Tarek gripped his rifle tighter, glancing nervously at the others. "They're inside already," he whispered. Elias didn't even look up. "They've been inside since the first impact. The moment they latch onto a hole, they pour in like infection through an open wound." The room shook, dust raining from the ceiling. A deep, guttural screech rang out through the corridor, followed by the metallic clang of claws against steel. Relin raised his weapon toward the door, every muscle tense. Sentinel's voice broke. "In. Multiple hostiles approaching. Sealing auxiliary reactor room." The blast door's locking mechanisms clamped down with a solid hiss, but no one in the room looked relieved. Everyone knew the Devourers weren't stopped by simple doors. Then came the scratching slow. Testing, like a knife dragged along the outside of the blast door, Tarek swallowed hard. Why are they doing that? Why don't they just break? Elias finally glanced up, his expression grim. "Because they're intelligent. They're studying us. It's deciding which one of us to kill first when they get through." The sound outside stopped. For a moment, the only noise was the reactor's rising hum. Then, without warning, the wall to their left caved inward as something massive punched through it. Metal screamed, sparks showered the floor, and then the ones before pulled itself into the room. Its armored hide rippled with shifting plates, its eyes glowing a sickly green. Relin fired first. The blast hit the creature's chest, but it only staggered, letting out an ear-splitting roar before charging. "Keep it away from the reactor," Elias shouted, diving to one side. The crew scattered, weapons firing. Each shot tore chunks from the Devourer's armor, but it moved with terrifying speed, lashing out with its claws. One crew member wasn't fast enough. Those claws ripped clean through his chest plate. Throwing his body against the far wall, Sentinel's voice thundered through the cums. "Critical breach. It's deploying support." A section of the floor split open, and two of the smaller defense drones rose into the room, their cannons lighting up with rapid-fire energy bursts. The Devourer howled as the drones drove it back, forcing it toward the jagged hole it had entered through. With a final roar, it retreated into the shadows beyond the wall. The room was silent for a moment, save for the hiss of damaged metal. "Terex." The voice was shaky. "That was just one of them?" Elias's eyes were cold. "One of their scouts." Before anyone could respond, the console in front of Elias beeped sharply. He leaned over it, scanning the readouts. Reactor output at 79%. Cannon charge 65. We're close. Another boom echoed through the ship, and the lights flickered. Relin's cum crackled with Sentinel's voice. "Warning, enemy forces detected in proximity to Command Core. If they breach the core, all control of the ship will be lost." Elias looked up sharply. "We can't let them get there. If they seize the ship's brain, they can turn the Vanguard's weapons against Usand, every world in range." Relin hesitated. "Then we split up? Some of us defend the core, the rest stay here to finish the charge?" Elias nodded once. "I'll take half your people and Sentinel to the core. You stay here with Tarek and keep this reactor alive. If it shuts down, everything we've done is for nothing." The decision was made in seconds. Elias and his half of the team moved toward a maintenance hatch at the back of the room, disappearing into the narrow service tunnels. The moment they were gone, the air felt heavier. A hum of the reactor filled the silence. Tarek stared at the door. "You think they'll make it?" Relin didn't answer. He was staring at the flickering light above the hatch, listening to the faint echoes of battle growing louder in the distance. And then, far away, came the sound of Elias Ward's voiceover comes sharp, urgent, and filled with a kind of controlled fury. "We've got contact." Core defense holding for now, the transmission cut off in a burst of static. Ted looked at Relin. "Was that bad?" Before Relin could answer, the blast door in front of them began to glow red-hot. Something on the other side was cutting through it. The blast door glowed brighter, molten metal dripping to the floor in thick smoking drops. Every hiss of liquid steel was a countdown in Relin's mind. Awoke shifted his weight nervously, eyes darting between the door and the reactor console. "They're cutting through fast," Tarek whispered. Relin didn't look away from the glowing circle widening in the door. "Then we shoot faster." Before the breach could finish, the console beeped sharply. The reactor's hum deepened, power surging through the walls. Tarek checked the readout. Reactor at 93%, cannons at 81. "That's not enough," Relin muttered. The door gave way with a shriek of tearing metal. A jagged hole opened, and a Devourer's clawed hand reached through, prying the steel apart. Another hand followed, and a face elongated, armored, its eyes burning with that sick green light. The creature hissed, a sound that was half steam and half hunger. Relin fired without hesitation. The blast hit it square in the head, staggering it but not stopping it. Another shot followed, then another, but the creature pushed forward, tearing the door wider. "Fall back," Relin shouted. They retreated toward the reactor, using the machinery as cover. The Devourer squeezed through the breach, its body unfolding with unnatural flexibility, plates of armor shifting over twitching muscle. Behind it, two smaller shapes darted into the room fast. Low to the ground, their claws scraping sparks from the deck, Tarek fired wildly. The shots hitting one of the smaller Devourers, tearing chunks from its armor until it collapsed. Other darted toward him, but Relin caught it with a blast to the head. The larger Devourer ignored them both. Its eyes locked on the reactor, as if it knew exactly what it was and why it mattered. It moved with terrifying purpose. Relin swore under his breath. "They know what we're doing." He fired again, aiming for its joints, but the shots barely slowed it down. Tarek grabbed one of the strange human grenades from the armory rack, thumbed the activation stud, and hurled it. The device stuck to the Devourer's chest, flashing bright, then exploded with a deafening crack. When the smoke cleared, the creature lay in pieces on the floor, its armor cracked open to reveal the grotesque fusion of flesh and metal beneath. Tyrannus staring at it. Are they machines? Animals? Relin shook his head. Neither. Before he could say more, Ilias's voice came through the coms, harsh with static. Core defense holding. We're surrounded. Sentinel report status on cannon charge. Sentinel's reply was instant, calm even under pressure. Cannon at 89%. Full charge in 4 minutes. Ilias's voice lowered, directed only to Relin. Hold that reactor no matter what happens. If we don't fire, the fleet will break through. Relin hesitated, then asked, What are they, Elias? These Devourers? For a moment, there was only the sound of weapons fire in the background. Then Elias spoke, his voice carrying a weight that made the air feel colder. They used to be us. Tarek blinked. What? Not human, Elias continued, but alive, intelligent, a race older than humanity. We found them on the edges of the galaxy. They were dying. Something was consuming them from the inside out. We thought it was a disease. We tried to help. We failed. Scream echoed through the coms, followed by the thud of something massive hitting metal. They let it change them, Elias said. They fused themselves with their machines to survive. But it didn't save them. It turned them into what you see now. It's hungry, endless. They devour everything because it's the only way they know to live. Tarek's stomach turned as he glanced at the ruined creature on the floor. So they can't be reasoned with. Lias's reply was immediate. You can't reason with a storm. You can only survive at Tor. Stop it before it spreads. The deck shook violently, almost throwing them to the floor. Sentinel's voice cut in. Warning multiple hull breaches in proximity to reactor. Chamber Relin swore. They're coming from both sides. They split their fire, covering the main entrance and a new breach opening in the far wall. More Devourers poured in for 5, then more. Their movements jerky and unnerving, claws flashing in the dim light. Tarek fought like a cornered animal. Switching between his rifle and grenades, the air filling with smoke and the sharp temps of burning metal. Relin covered his flank, every shot precise, controlled. But the enemy kept coming. The Sentinel's calm voice came again. Cannon at 99%. Stand by. A Devourer leapt toward Relin, its claws reaching for his throat. Before it could strike, a blast from the ceiling turret vaporized its head. The smell of scorched flesh filled the chamber. Cannon ready, Sentinel announced. Over the coms, Elias shouted, Fire! There was no sound at first, just a deep vibration that seemed to hum in their bones. Then, through the bulkheads, came the distant roar of unimaginable power. The Vanguard's planetfall cannon released its charge, a beam of white energy so bright it cut through the darkness of space like a blade. Sweeping across the Devourer fleet, the rumble faded, replaced by an eerie silence.
I'll make.
Relin looked at Tarek. Both of them breathing hard, weapons still ready. Sentinel's voice broke the stillness. Enemy fleet reduced by 61%, remaining forces regrouping for secondary assault. Tarek's face went pale. That didn't kill them all? Lias's voice came back over the coms, grim and unshaken. No, that was just the opening shot. Somewhere in the ship, alarms began to wail again. The alarms howled through the Vanguard's corridors, echoing like the cries of some wounded beast. Red lights pulsed along the walls, each flash a reminder that the danger had not passed. Relin wiped the sweat from his brow, his hands still trembling from the fight. Tarek sat on the floor for a moment, catching his breath, his rifle across. His knees? 60% gone, Tarek said quietly, almost to himself. That shot. It was like nothing I've ever seen. And still not enough, Relin replied, his voice low. Before either of them could speak further, Ilias's voice came over the coms, sharp and urgent. They're regrouping. Status on enemy movement. The AI's reply was instant. The remaining hostile vessels have adjusted formation. Multiple boarding signatures incoming larger than previous waves. Estimated hull penetration in 90 seconds. Tarek looked at Relin, his face pale. Larger. Elias came on again, his voice steady despite the chaos in the background. The smaller ones were just clearing a path. The bigger ones are here to tear this ship apart from the inside. Another voice joined in. It was the Sentinel, but this time it sounded almost strained. Warning: structural integrity compromised on decks 12 through 15. Multiple bulkhead failures detected. Lin knew those decks were close. To the primary reactor? If the Devourers got there, the cannon would be useless. Elias, Relin said into the coms, we can't hold if they come from every direction. You don't have to, Elias answered. You just need to hold one. The words made no sense. Elias continued. I'm pulling all surviving crew into 3 choke points. Sentinel will seal the rest of the corridors and vent them. To space, the Devourers don't need air, but it will slow them down enough to buy us time. And if they break through the choke points, Tarek asked. Ilias's voice was cold, and we make sure they don't live long enough to enjoy it. A deep tremor rolled through the ship, shaking dust from the ceiling. Relin turned to Ward. The far bulkhead as it began to bulge inward, metal bending under immense pressure. They're here, someone shouted over the coms. The wall tore open like paper, and a devourer unlike any they had seen before stepped through. It stood twice the height of a man, its armor layered in shifting plates, each movement accompanied by the hiss of steam and the grinding of gears. Its claws were long and hooked, each one glistening with some oily black fluid. Keep your distance. Elias's voice snapped over the coms. That's an Alpha. The Alpha moved with horrifying speed for its size, crossing the room in 3 long strides. Relin fired at its head, but the shots ricocheted harmlessly off its armor. Behind a console, as the creature's claw swept through the air, slicing the machinery in half, the blast doors behind them slammed shut, cutting them off from the rest of the ship. Sentinel's voice rang out. Choke point established. Gauging defense systems. Turrets descended from the ceiling, their barrels glowing as they unleashed a storm of white-hot fire. The Alpha roared, its armor blackening under the barrage, but it did not fall. It smashed one of the turrets with a single strike, sending the wreckage spinning across the room. Relin ducked behind a support beam, reloading. We can't kill it like this, Elias replied immediately. Then don't try. Hold it in place. Tarek. Understood first. He grabbed one of the sticky grenades from his belt and dashed forward, sliding between the Alpha's legs. The creature swiped at him, but he rolled clear, slapping the grenade onto its lower back. He scrambled away as the device began to flash. Now, Ilias ordered. Relin fired a single shot into the grenade. The explosion was deafening, the shock wave rattling the deck. The Alpha staggered, armor cracked and smoking. Sentinels, turrets. Focused fire on the exposed gap. Burning through the layers until the creature finally collapsed, smoke pouring from its ruined shell. There was no time to celebrate. Sentinel's voice came again. Additional breaches detected for locations. Hostiles advancing on all choke points. Elias's voice was quieter now, almost to himself. You can't win this by holding ground. Relin keyed his come. Then what's the plan? Elias hesitated for only a heartbeat. We fire the cannon again, but this time at point-blank range. Tarek's head snapped up. Point blank. Mean aim it at the ships that are on us? Yes, Elias said. The blast will destroy them. And us. The room fell silent, except for the distant roar of battle. That's not a plan, Relin said. That's suicide. Ilias's voice hardened. If they get past us, they'll take this ship, its weapons, and its archives. And then they'll burn every world they find. If we go down with the Vanguard, at least we take the enemy with us. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Relin looked at Tarek. The young alien's hands were shaking, but his eyes were steady. If we're going to die, Tarek said, we might as well make it count. Another shudder ran through the deck, louder this time. The sound of claws on metal drew closer, echoing in the sealed corridors. Elias came on. That comes one last time. Sentinel, begin charge sequence. All hands prepare for final engagement. And then, through the smoke and the flashing red light, came the first shapes of the next wave, dozens of them, crawling along the walls and ceiling like a tide of living metal. The corridors of the Vanguard were no longer quiet. They were alive with the sound of worgen fire echoing in tight spaces. The screech of devourers, the crash of metal tearing apart. Smoke drifted through the air like a slow-moving fog. Stinging eyes and burning lungs. Relin crouched behind an overturned console, firing in controlled bursts. Each shot lit up the hallway, revealing the shapes of the devourers crawling closer on the walls. On the ceiling, even skittering upside down across the pipes overhead, at a turret Sentinel had deployed were burning through ammunition at a frightening pace, their barrels glowing red. Elias, Relin called over the comms. How much longer on the cannon? Elias's voice came back, breathless but steady. 83% charge. We don't have much time before they breach the reactor completely. Tarek was crouched beside him, reloading, his hands trembling. I'm running out of ammo. Relin glanced at him, then aimed for the ones that matter. We don't need to kill all of them, just keep them from reaching the reactor. As if the Devourers understood, one of the larger beasts dropped from the ceiling, smashing through the turret nearest the door. Sparks showered the deck as the machine died, leaving a gap in the defenses. 3 smaller creatures immediately poured through, claws snapping. Tarek stepped forward, blasting one in the head, its skull shattering in a spray of black ichor. Lin took down the second with 2 precise shots. The third made it through, slamming into Tarek and knocking him off his feet. Tarek, Relin shouted, firing again. The round hit the creature in the side, but it didn't slow. It raised a claw to finish Tarek, then its head exploded in a burst of plasma fire from above. Relin looked up to see Elias standing on the catwalk, rifle smoking. Hold the line, he yelled, jumping down to join them. Behind him, Sentinels. Voice cut through the chaos. Warning enemy forces approaching critical reactor components. Structural integrity at 21%. Elias turned to Relin. We have to push them back or the charge won't complete. They fought side by side, the air thick with smoke and the stench of burning metal. The Devourers came in waves, each more aggressive than the last. One slammed Elias into the wall hard enough to dent the plating, but he rolled aside and fired point-blank into its chest. Then the deck shuddered violently, knocking everyone off balance. A deafening boom followed, and Sentinel's voice rose above the noise. Primary hull breach detected. Boarding party size exceeds defensive capacity. Elias's face hardened. He keyed the comm to the whole ship. All hands fall back to the core, or sealing off every other section. But the reactor Relin started. Will hold as long as I'm alive. Elias cut him off. They retreated through the smoke, Sentinel sealing bulkheads behind them. The sounds of claws scraping against steel echoed from the other side. Of the walls, relentless, unending. When they reached the core, the sight froze everyone for a heartbeat. The massive crystalline chamber at the heart of the Vanguard was glowing bright blue, arcs of energy crawling across its surface like lightning trapped in glass. The cannon was nearly ready, but the cost was clear. The floor around it was littered. With destroyed drones and dead crew, Sentinel's voice was urgent now. Cannon charge at 94%? Recommend immediate evacuation? Elias looked at the AI's glowing interface. There's no evacuation. If we leave before the shot fires, the Devourers win. Relin stepped forward. Can't fire at this close. The blast will vaporize us, Elias finished. Yes, I know. The doors at the far end of the chamber burst inward, and the Devourers poured through. Not the smaller scouts this time. These were the battle forms. Towering, heavily armored, eyes burning with alien light. Hold them, Elias shouted. The last surviving crew opened fire, the roar of their rifles merging with the thrum of the charging core. Turrets spun up, spitting plasma into the advancing horde. One Devourer fell, then another, but more took their place, climbing. Over the bodies of the dead like a tide of steel and flesh, a clawed arm slammed into Relen's side, sending him crashing into the railing. His vision blurred, but he kept firing, even as blood trickled down his temple. Tarek was beside him, screaming something he couldn't hear over the noise. Elias fought like a man possessed, moving between fallen crew, dragging one clear before firing again. His rifle clicked empty, and without hesitation, he grabbed a fallen devourer's own jagged blade. Cutting down the nearest enemy in a spray of sparks and ichor, cannon charge 100%. Sentinel announced. The chamber seemed to hold its breath for one impossible moment. Elias looked at Relen, then at the console. His hand hovered over the firing control. The devourers were almost on top of them. The nearest raised its claws, its shadow falling across the core. Elias slammed his palm onto the control. There was no sound, just a blinding light that swallowed the world. The light faded slowly, not like a switch being turned off, but like a dying star, shrinking back into the dark, where the Vanguard had been. There was nothing but drifting debris molten, fragments of hull, twisted beams, glowing chunks of alien armor. No sound, only the silent ballet of destruction in the void. For a moment, the galaxy was still. The Devourer fleet, what remained of it, was simply gone, erased, vaporized in the heart of the cannon's impossible blast. Hours later, a small rescue cutter from the distant rim colonies picked up faint distress signals. The crew had been patrolling near the outskirts when their sensors caught the energy spike strong enough to make their instruments scream. They followed the trail of radiation until they found the wreckage. "By the stars," whispered there. "Captain," as the drifting remains of the warship came into view, through the shattered ribs of the Vanguard's hull, they found pockets of survivors, few but alive. Sentinel's emergency shield pods had activated in the final milliseconds before the blast, stealing off small sections and casting them into the void like lifeboats. Relen was one of them. He awoke to the cold hiss of oxygen systems and the dim glow of survival lights. His body ached, his head throbbed, but he was breathing. Tarek was slumped beside him, still alive but unconscious. His hands burned from the last moments of the fight. The rescue team cut them out, hauling them aboard the cutter. "What happened here?" the captain asked, her voice tight with awe. Relen's mind flashed back, the roar of claws on steel, the blue glow of the reactor, Elias's eyes in that final second. He swallowed hard. The commander fired the cannon. Point blank. The captain frowned. "No one survives a blast like that." Relen shook his head. He didn't. When they searched the wreckage further, there was no sign of Elias. Not a body, not even armor fragments. It was as if he had been erased with the enemy. Or taken because in the core chamber's remains. The rescue crew found something strange. A perfect sphere of fused metal and crystal floating in the debris. It was warm to the touch, and inside, through the warped surface, they thought they saw the faint shape of a man's eyes closed, as if sleeping. The captain ordered it sealed away for study, but Relen never stopped wondering. Had Elias died in that blinding light? Or had the cannon's impossible energy done something else? Something no one could understand? Back on the rim, word spread fast. Stories about the Vanguard's last stand raced from world to world. The Devourers were gone, scattered, their hive fleet shattered. Humanity, long thought extinct by many distant colonies, was suddenly remembered, revered. They called the event the Light of Vanguard. To the survivors, it was both a victory and a wound that would never truly heal. Tara eventually woke. He and Relen sat together on the viewing deck of the rescue station, staring at the stars. "They'll come again," Tarek said quietly. Relen nodded. "Maybe. But now they know what waits for them." Tarek looked at him.
Do you think Elias
"Planned to survive?" Relen didn't answer. He just kept watching the stars. In the blackness, far beyond the rescue station's lights. He thought he saw a flicker of faint blue glow, therefore a heartbeat, then gone, far away. In the cold silence between galaxies, a single figure drifted. Eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly blue. And somewhere in the dark, something answered.